Good morning, everyone. My name is Katie Kelly. I am the director of the Missouri Small Business Development Center here at Missouri Southern State University. For those of you that don't know where that is, that's on the bottom floor of this building. And I'm thrilled to welcome you all to Why Export to Canada. So today, I'm excited to introduce our guest speaker, Olivia Ross. Olivia is a trade specialist with the Missouri's International Trade and Investment Office through Missouri Department of Economic Development. Her focus is on the Southwest region. With a rich and varied background, Olivia brings incredible expertise and dedication to her work. After serving 8 years in the U.S. Army Reserve and achieving the rank of sergeant, she received an honorable discharge in 2018. Following her military service, she ventured into small business ownership with a coffee shop in Southwest Missouri, gaining firsthand experience in entrepreneurship. Olivia then moved into the nonprofit work in the healthcare and food access sectors, contributing to her community in impactful ways. Now, in her role as an international trade specialist, she combines her passion for foreign affairs, business management, and creating access to new opportunities. Her focus is on assisting small, medium-sized businesses in Southwest and Central Missouri, helping them explore and navigate international markets, including Canada. Please join me in welcoming Olivia Ross.
Morning. So as she said, I am Olivia Ross, and I will be going through giving some detailed information on Canada, the business environment there, and some of the opportunities for expanding international trade into Canada. So one of the biggest benefits of trade in Canada is they are our next door neighbors. They are one of the oldest trade partners that we have. We've had a long and rich history of commerce going back and forth, which has led into long-standing trade agreements to help ease the passage of those goods being able to go back and forth, starting with the North American Free Trade Agreement, or NAFTA, that was updated into the U.S., Mexico, and Canada Trade Agreement in July of 2020. And the purpose of these agreements essentially was to help make it a much easier, it's a very similar trade environment to what you have in the U.S. So when you are kind of exporting your goods from, say, Missouri into California or into various states, there may be a little bit of differences, but it can be a very familiar environment going into Canada as well. A lot of the certifications, if you are certified to do trade, if your goods have the certifications or the requirements to sell and do business within the U.S., for the most part, you will have these certifications that you need in order to be able to do trade in Canada. And one of the other primary benefits of it as well is it actually helps reduce and in many cases eliminates tariffs and fees to go across the border. So there are things like value add tax that you have to deal with in Europe or going overseas to countries that we do not have these trade agreements with. So that can really help lower financial barriers that are present in trying to, in shipping to other countries. So some of the information kind of on our connections that we have, which also includes people are technically counted as exports. So we actually have people that are coming in and starting families in Missouri. 4,841 Missourians were born in Canada. And 5,697 Missourians with Canadian ancestry. So even kind of people-wise, we have a pretty strong connection with sharing our cultures. And we also have 10,796 Missourians who speak French. Why is that relevant? Well, French is the kind of #2 language. So French and English are both kind of top languages that they have in Canada. And so when you have that French language speaking connection, that helps to further increase your ability to kind of cross-communicate. So the imports picture, so the trade that we receive from Canada, we do over $4 billion a year. That was our total from 2023, kind of the most updated metrics that we have. And transportation and oil and gas are really kind of the top, and all of the things associated with that are sort of the top NAICS codes that we have tracked in that trade. And then food processing and agriculture kind of being the next highest that we have. This gives a little bit more of a granular breakdown. So again, kind of that trade, some motor vehicle parts, plastics products. You also have general purpose machinery and metal and oil and gas processing. And so, yeah, in the environment, so a lot of trade of components for manufacturing and for production are going back and forth. Bless you. And so this is kind of the map over the last 5 years from going back to 2018. So we have been in that billion range for that 4 to 5 billion range for quite a while. There is sort of a lower and a dip in 2020. There was a few major events happening at that time, interrupted a lot of trade. But as you can see, because of those strong partnerships and because of the updates to the US-Canada-Mexico trade agreement, that really helped open things back up. So the recovery was pretty steep going into 2021 and 2022. The 2023, it did drop again, but I was taking a look into it. The full calculations and full tracking hadn't actually been completed with the data that I had. They were still going through and finalizing that. So those were the numbers as of the last update. And so the exports, so Missouri businesses sending their products into Canada. Again, it's very similar, transportation equipment, chemicals and machinery, and again, that processed food, which fairly well makes sense. A lot of those are actually our top exports in Missouri overall. So Canada is actually a really, really good snapshot of what our global exports are, because we're doing a lot of that trade really, really strongly with our neighbors there. And the further breakdown here, and as you can see, so we have the motor vehicles, motor vehicle parts, and kind of those electrical equipment and components, and a lot of those going into motor vehicles, going into aerospace and spacecraft and aircraft. So the transportation and the manufacturing, a lot of those goods, Canada has been a really, really good partner in receiving those and incorporating them into their own production. And once more, the 5-year overview going back to 2018. So we are at, in 2023, at the 6.5 billion, and it's been really, really steady going back, even with the dip in 2020, which again with COVID, a lot of that supply chain kind of was interrupted, but really, really strongly picking up and has even strengthened, which has again largely been attributed to the new updates to the trade agreement that were implemented. And so here's kind of a yearly snapshot, going a little bit more in depth, again, into these kind of 3-digit NAICS codes, transportation, chemicals, and machinery. Those, again, across the board being by and large what Canada is buying from Missouri, kind of with processed foods and agriculture being there pretty well in the center, because agriculture is one of the huge exports of Missouri overall. Oh, I missed putting my contact information on there. So you'll be able to get a hold of Katie Kelly to get my contact, or I do have cards if you want to come get some. But kind of rounding out, does anybody have any questions or want to dig into any further topics on Canada? Yeah, so did have one question, and the question was, if a small business wanted to begin their exports into Canada, what would that process look like? Kind of beginning out, I would probably, once I found out about the company, I would reach out and kind of do a little bit of an interview with them, see if they have export experience already. If they do and feel fairly confident, then we can kind of move right into it. With the Missouri Department of Economic Development, with my office specifically, we're almost kind of like a business matchmaker. So we have contracted foreign offices, and I work with our office in Canada that can help you find or help small businesses find partners, safe partners to work with that have been vetted through our background checks and programs. But if they maybe need a little bit more export assistance readiness, I could get them connected like with the SBDC or with the International Trade Commission to go through some trainings to help make sure that they are ready. And once they are, we get them back connected with Department of Economic Development, and then we'll actually be able to go through and build out an export plan. So they've identified Canada that they want to work with. So I would go through, I would get a good snapshot of their business, kind of who they are, what they're doing, introduce them to our foreign office, and we could do full market reports, which would take a look at their goods, their services specifically, and how that fits into the economic market in Canada, including like what are the opportunities, kind of what are the price points, what are going to be some potential challenges and barriers, what is the competition, either from other exporters or from within Canada being produced, to help make sure it's going to be a good place for them to go. And let's say we've done that, everything looks great, we can move forward then into doing kind of an agent distributor search. So finding those Canadian partners, getting them introduced, helping foster those relationships and build them up into building generally our goal is a long-term trade relationship.
We have a question online.
Yeah.
Crystal asks, what do you expect to see in the future for Missouri exports?
So overall or with Canada specifically?
I'm assuming Canada, but.
Okay. So with Canada specifically, kind of taking a look at the trends that we've had, I do kind of only see it going up. There has been some difficulty with some of the trade relationships, just with a lot of like political lines shifting and things like that, a lot of natural disasters and stuff. One of the really promising things though is because of a lot of the supply chain interruption in 2020, there has been a lot of looking and pushing towards increasing production and manufacturing. So for a long time, US has been kind of known as a service-based economy, which can be really, really good. There's a lot of strengths there, but bringing a lot of our manufacturing reshore and getting them here in the US, building them up, and then being able to make us a much more stronger productive base and sending out. So I do see a lot of push and support for particularly manufacturers and producers of physical goods, and even expanding into, there are a lot of digital services and digital building, digital production that are being given manufacturing NAICS codes, because even though it's online, it's still being manufactured. And we do have a lot of strength in the digital realm as well, and being able to export those services. Actually, within our department, we've been finding ways of helping digital-based companies be able to find and sort of exports their goods and services, even though it seems like more of an intangible. So there's I think a lot of really good opportunities, and I think a lot of businesses and economic developers have been really, really wise in seeking those out and helping to increase that production base. Yes.
I have more of a local question about coffee in Southwest Missouri.
Okay.
If it's appropriate. So I've noticed that I live in Webb City, and so just a couple blocks north of here, a couple miles north of here, there must be like at least half a dozen coffee places. Like within, you could drive from one to the other in less than 2 minutes. Why are there so many? Like, what's supporting this right now here? I'm curious, like, why that's the business.
So I think there's a couple of reasons for it. One is, so it's almost difficult to say trade related, because you don't open a coffee shop to get super wealthy. I speak from experience there. It is a passion, it is a labor of love. There is a lot of craft that goes into it, and there is a lot of art, and there are a lot of people that really, really enjoy yeah, I talk about there's a lot of opportunity in kind of the digital realm, but a lot of people that I've talked to, including myself, I moonlight as a barista still sometimes on weekends, help out in a coffee shop so I can keep those skills sharp. It is a really good skill. It's a really translatable skill. And a lot of times, most baristas that kind of get started fall in love with it. Almost everybody that I know that has started out as a barista really enjoyed that and wanted to do it. It also creates a really good third space. So in COVID, when there's a lot of isolation happening, kind of coming back out, people want to be around people, and coffee shops can provide a really, really good kind of safe space, third space where you can do homework or you can talk, you can have Bible studies meeting up together. It can be difficult translating, you know, you could have somebody come in, buy a coffee, and then sit for 5 hours and use your Wi-Fi. That's always been kind of a how do you know, balance that out. But a lot of folks that I've talked to, they don't even care about that necessarily. Like they want this to be a kind of a communal hub. I think to a large degree, it's also, you used to be able to kind of find that with bars. I think and there does seem to be a trend moving a little bit away from alcohol and moving towards coffee, especially because it's much more age friendly. You could have a 15, 16-year-old go to a coffee shop and be just fine, whereas, you know, a bar wasn't going to be a friendly place for that. So I think it's some economic, but I almost think it might be a little bit more of a social aspect.
So the largest brewer in Canada is Labatt, based in Toronto, and they were purchased by Anheuser-Busch out of St. Louis a few years ago. Can you speak at all to, you know, the beer trade between Missouri and Canada, and if that factors into your import and export numbers that you shared earlier?
Yeah, so those fall under that processed food NAICS. So that's kind of the overall general. But yeah, brewing is actually a huge Missouri production. A lot of our internal trade, there are several small craft breweries and larger breweries. There is a little bit of a push to turn Missouri into a recognized wine country as well. We do have a lot of distilleries. As those have really been growing and gaining a lot of traction, a lot of them are actually moving into exporting as well and kind of becoming known for having really good and high quality, competing with kind of the likes of Kentucky and some of those southern, you know, where you associate bourbon. Missouri is producing things on par with that and is starting to gain recognition. We've had several companies attending trade shows and doing a lot more trade in Canada, have seen a pretty big uptick in that.
We have another question online. What are key lessons you have learned from working with businesses who want to tap into international markets?
Let's see. So all kinds of things. This is it was actually my first economic development job, and so it's just all been learning. There is a lot of work that does go into it, and there is some tenacity. So a lot of paperwork that you have to fill out and things like that. But there are so many resources, even outside of my department, that are available. Many, like the vast majority of them being at no cost to businesses, which especially for smaller and medium-sized businesses. And again, I would know I had a shoestring budget. I did not have extra for anything. And if I'd known about a lot of these resources, I might still be a coffee shop owner, that are available to help to smooth the difficulty, because it's not easy exporting. There are, even with the U.S. and trade agreements that we have with our neighbors, as much easier as it is to go to Canada, to go to Mexico, even with all of the friendliness, there are trades, there's so much paperwork that's involved with it, and it can twist you up in knots. But there are really good sources of expertise that are more than happy to help out with that are really passionate about helping Missouri businesses find these opportunities, gain this traction, that it's not just a job. A lot of us being former business owners, and so we actually kind of know the struggles. We know what's difficult, and we know what companies need in order to be able to do these things successfully. And also over the last couple of years have been working together just increasingly. So it's almost like one big team, even though we all, you know, have different bosses and get paid from different sources. we all are coming together to help the Missouri companies, and it's been really, really cool to kind of watch this economic development sort of community come around to, to help these companies, to help these employers, improve not only their companies, but then that helps improve their communities. I didn't really understand economic development before, but how important and how much it can change a community for the better and give opportunities probably has been the biggest thing for me, I think.
Piggyback off of that a little bit. So, talking about small businesses and if they're ready to export. So the Missouri Small Business Development Center, we actually have a international trade director at the state level, and we have a ready to export ready assessment that we give small business owners that they take that shows if they're in position to start exporting. So we usually start with that, and then if after that assessment says, yes, you're ready, then we connect them with Missouri Department of Economic Development. So you can always start with our office as well.
And that is something, kind of piggyback again, we do try to be careful to make sure, because there is so much that's going into exporting, and it is possible to grow too fast too soon. We actually do work, even if it means that I have to wait to be able to add a number to, my quota or whatever, we are working to make sure that we are connecting businesses with opportunities that are actually good for them, that will actually keep them going long term, that will actually build something for them. Okay, if there are no other kind of questions for the group, that concludes my presentation, but I will be hanging out for a few minutes, so if you want to come by and grab a card, or if you have any kind of specific questions, I'd be happy to answer those too. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.